It was just after sunrise on a cold, cloudy morning in Cleveland, Ohio. The streets still glistened from last night's rain, and the city was waking up in its usual rush, coffee cups in hand, earbuds in ears, and eyes glued to the sidewalk. No one had time to notice the girl sitting quietly on the edge of the bench at the public transit station. Her name was Mariah Thompson. She was 19, but her eyes carried the weariness of someone much older. A tattered backpack sat at her feet, stuffed with everything she owned, 2 changes of clothes, a blanket, and a notebook she wrote in every night. Her hoodie was damp, her jeans stiff from drying overnight under a freeway bridge, and the soles of her shoes were barely holding together. Mariah had been homeless for over a year. She didn't talk much about how it started. How her stepfather had turned violent after her mother passed, how she'd been in and out of group homes, how she tried staying with a friend until that friend's family kicked her out. The world hadn't given her many chances. But despite it all, Mariah still believed in kindness. She had very little, but what she had, she would share. Always. That morning, she had exactly $1.15. Enough for a one-way bus ride to the shelter that offered free job counseling once a week. She clutched the coins in her hand, calculating her route, when a man in his early 50s rushed into the terminal, looking flustered. He wore a dark wool coat, tailored slacks, and expensive shoes, and yet he looked lost. He stood at the ticket kiosk, patting down his pockets. "Where the hell is it?" he muttered. "No wallet, no phone." Mariah watched him. He seemed important, he didn't fit into this part of the city. He looked like the kind of man who drove places, not someone who took public buses. But here he was, stuck like the rest of them. She didn't think long. Her instincts kicked in. She stepped forward and held out her hand with the coins. "Here," she said softly. "It's enough for a fare." He turned, surprised. "I can't take that." Mariah shrugged. "It's all right. I can walk." The man looked at her, really looked at her worn clothes, the faded bruise on her wrist, the exhaustion in her voice. "Are you sure?" "Yeah. You look like you've got somewhere important to be." He accepted the coins reluctantly, nodding his thanks as the bus arrived. Before stepping on, he turned back and asked, "What's your name?" "Mariah," she replied, wrapping her arms around her chest against the cold. "I'm Richard." Then he was gone. She didn't expect to ever see him again. But Richard Bradford wasn't just another man late for work. He was the founder and chairman of Bradford Systems, one of the largest logistics tech firms in the Midwest. That morning, he'd left his wallet and phone on the table of a cafe while reviewing a proposal and hadn't noticed until he was several blocks away. Out of desperation, he tried the bus for the first time in 20 years. He didn't talk about the encounter in his board meetings that day. But something about Mariah stuck with him, the calm way she helped, the dignity she showed even though it was clear she had very little. It reminded him of someone, his own mother. She, too, had once raised him alone while working double shifts as a nurse. There were nights she gave him dinner and went without. Kindness was her currency. And he had forgotten what that looked like. Richard couldn't let it go. The next day, he assigned someone from his personal staff to quietly check the security cameras near the bus stop. Within a day, they found the footage. He froze the image on her face. There she was, handing over her only fare without hesitation. The search took over a week. Most shelters wouldn't give out names, but finally, one of the volunteers at a food pantry in Glenville recognized her photo. "Yeah, she comes around sometimes. Never causes trouble. Always says thank you. Sweet girl." Richard left his business card. "If she comes back, please give her this. Tell her I'd like to speak with her." Mariah was used to people staring at her, but not the way the food pantry coordinator was looking at her that Thursday afternoon. Curious. Hesitant. You have someone asking about you, the woman finally said, sliding over a business card. Mariah picked it up. Richard Bradford, Chairman and CEO, Bradford Systems. She stared. This has to be a mistake. He said he met you at the bus stop, the volunteer replied. Said he owed you a conversation. Mariah didn't sleep much that night. Her mind raced through 1,000 possibilities. Was he going to pay her back? Was this some rich guy with a savior complex? Or worse, was it all fake? But something told her to show up. When she entered the building downtown, she almost turned around. The lobby was sleek, tall, and shimmering with marble floors. People in sharp suits and heels moved briskly through the halls. She felt like an imposter. But when she gave her name to the receptionist, they immediately escorted her to the top floor. Richard stood when she entered his office. He smiled. I wasn't sure you'd come. Mariah glanced around nervously. I didn't know if I should. I just wanted to say thank you. That day, you helped me when I didn't deserve it. And I think, you deserve better too. She tilted her head. I didn't do it for anything in return. I know, he nodded. That's exactly why it mattered. Then he paused. I don't want to assume what you need, Mariah. But I have resources, and I'd like to help you. No strings, no pity. Just a chance. Mariah was stunned. Why me? Because you reminded me of someone. And because the world is full of people who had helped and forgot. I'd like to be the kind who remembers. He offered her a place in a partner nonprofit that offered transitional housing, therapy, and job training. And beyond that, he wanted her to enter the company's apprenticeship program, paid training, mentorship, and a pathway to permanent employment. Mariah sat silently, overwhelmed. It felt like a trick. But it wasn't. She said yes. The next year was hard. Mariah wasn't used to stability. For months, she half expected it all to fall apart. But slowly, she began to believe it was real. She took computer and communication courses. She met with a counselor every week. She started keeping a schedule, showing up early, staying late, learning everything she could. She moved into her first real apartment, small, with chipped counters, but hers. And she never stopped writing in her notebook. 3 years later, Mariah Thompson stood in front of 300 people at a conference hosted by Bradford Systems. She had just been named the company's youngest ever systems coordinator, managing a team of 10. Her story had made headlines on several platforms. She stepped up to the microphone and smiled. A few years ago, I had $1 and a choice. I gave it to a stranger at a bus stop because that's who I am. I never imagined that moment would lead me here. But what I've learned is that kindness doesn't end at the person you help, it keeps going. So if you've ever doubted whether your small gesture matters, believe me, it does. I'm living proof. Richard clapped from the front row, proud, moved, and grateful. And just like that, what started with a single dollar, became a life rewritten.